Morning, Michael. How you doing this morning? Knock, knock. Knock, knock. Who's there? Candace. Candace who? Can this joke get any worse? All right. What do you call a sad cup of coffee? Depresso. Oh, that's a good cup of coffee. Why'd the pitcher go to jail? Because he was framed. And if a parsley farmer gets sued, can they garnish his wages? Nice to see you here, Michael Superbacker. Thanks for joining me this morning on the Magic the Gathering talk show. I appreciate you for tuning in. Why don't we see elephants hiding in trees? Because they're really good at it, right? All right, 6:30 a.m. is the best time of the day. Hands down. Hands down, because we're going to talk a little bit of shop here this morning with you, Michael. It's nice to see you here in the morning, joining us on the stream, if you know what I mean. If you ever get attacked by a mob of clowns, go for the jugular. That's what I always say. It's a Tuesday edition of the morning show with your host, Brody Alfonso. I'm glad that you could make it, and I'm not afraid to say it. If you've already hit the subscribe channel button, thank you very much. But if not, please do it. It helps the channel grow, and it lets us know that you folks are watching and enjoying a little bit of Magic the Gathering content here in the morning. I couldn't do without you, friends tuning in from all over the world, tuning in from Boston and across the pond. The rotation of the earth really makes my day, and so does spending a little bit of time with you folks here on the Magic Show. Before the sun comes up, it's the working man for the working man, doing the best that I can to give you a little bit of Magic the Gathering news, updates, and finance discussion. That's right. Do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? Is there enough information out there, or is there just too much gall darn information? Is there too much to keep up with the new spoiler seasons out? New spoilers, new card interactions, and new jank. Who we got in the show here? We got Cardboard Splendor, Michael Superbacker, folks tuning in from around the world. I would advise you folks never buy anything with Velcro. It's a total ripoff. Well, you know what's not a ripoff is your time well spent here before you head out, no matter where you are in the world. Whether you got Brody next to the coffee pot, you got me sitting on the dash of the car, maybe you've got me in your shirt pocket hanging around the water cooler, chatting with friends about the new spoilers that are out and the new card interactions that make this game so exciting. When we get new spoilers, there's always something to see in the world of finance. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for things to catch on and people to kind of put the two and two together. That's what I mean, is put the new card interactions together with the new sets when spoilers come out. It doesn't take very long for people to realize there's some undervalued cards out there in the world of Magic the Gathering. Some of them are a little bit old, and one of the cards that we're going to cover here again on this stream, we talked about it earlier this week, and we've been squirreling away a little bit of news for you folks on that. So we're going to get to that here today, this morning, just to get your day started. I hope wherever you are, you're going to have a good one. So stay calm and join us here. We got MTG Gaming Bob. How you doing, Gaming Bob? Knock knock. Knock knock. Who's there? Wooden shoe. All right. Wooden shoe. Who? Wouldn't you like to hear a better joke from me on the morning show? I hope you get there. It's going to be a good one wherever you are. We got Gaming Bob. We got friends from Ohio, Boston, all over the world. The best part of my day connecting with you folks is going to be a good one. Hands down, 6:30, the best time of the day, right? The rotation of the planet really makes my world go round. Let's talk about shop here this morning. But before we do that, we'll warm up with a couple of AI generated magic cards here this morning. Something to get our chops limbered up. Let's take a look at some AI generated magic cards. Been a lot of controversy around the AI. That's right. We're wondering if folks even notice whether the new card art coming out is authentically human generated, or maybe there's no way to know. Well, perhaps you can help me out here this morning. Let's take a look at some of these AI generated magic cards. And for those of you who have not tuned in to the show recently, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to take a look at some cards, and if it's playable any way whatsoever, we'll give it a pass. Even if it's a little overcosted, overpowered, if it's functionally okay, we're going to give it a pass. You're going to hear this sound. That's right, the sound of the dinger. And if it's got any gibberish on the card whatsoever, we're going to fail it. We got no time for messing around. You're going to hear this sound, cousin. That's the sound of the buzzing. All right. All right, already. What did the... All right. What did the two pieces of bread say on their wedding day? It was loaf at first sight. But if you've got a loaf at first sight with this beauty of a magic card, this is Canasson Gloria. Oh, Gloria, Gloria. My brain needs one of those buzzers when I get a bad idea. All right. Yeah, you could bet your bottom dollar that thing is going off nonstop over here. Good ideas, bad ideas. Is this Canasson Gloria? I thought it was Gloria, but it's Canasson Goria. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? I can't really say. What do the dentists call their x-rays? Well, those are toothpicks, of course. And if a snowman has a temper tantrum, that's called a meltdown. But let's melt down and take a look at this sucker here. Playable but busted, you say. Canassangoria? Target player discards their hand for one red and an instant speed. That seems pretty good. You know, there's another card, I think it's black, and it does the same thing. It makes you discard your own hand. You know, I always thought like a card like Lion's Eye Diamond was really, really bad when it first came out, but then there became a way to make it good. What's that card in black that lets you discard your own hand? Somebody help me out here. There is already a card like this in black. Another one of those win the game but lose your play group kind of cards, right? Very true. One with nothing. That's right. Thank you. Is this not just another one with nothing? Discard your hand for one. Yeah, this is a sort of one with nothing type of card. And there's another card called Smog Chain. Smog Chain. Chain of Smog. This one kind of gets you there too. And one thing I didn't realize with the Chain of Smog says target player discards 2 cards. That player may copy the spell and may choose any new target for that copy. You can actually target yourself as many times as you want with the Chain of Smog to get rid of your hand if that's important to you. I asked my wife if I was the only one I've been. She said yes. All the others were at least sevens or eights. All right, Chain of Smog. Abandon Hope. Is that a card? Let's just take a look at it. Speaking of discarding our hands. Abandon Hope. This one let us discard as an additional cast. Cost to cast a spell, discard X cards, look at target player's hand and choose X cards from it. That player discards those cards. That's a decent hand removal spell. All right. Well, if you've got no hands, maybe you're like Pinocchio. You got no hands, you got no strings. It's got flashback. Target player discards their hand unless they pay 5 life. All right. With Chain of Smog, one with nothing. Imagine if I knew something useful instead of knowing one with nothing. Let's give it a pass. It sounds overpowered, but it's definitely not too bad. There are worse cards out there. This thing looks like it could be playable. Let's pass it. All right. We'll rate this magic card. I'd say it's Is it OP? Let's give it an OP. It's OP. Surge of Death. Surging of Death. What happens when frogs park illegally? They get towed. That's right. Surge of Death here this morning. What's this enchant here? Enchantment Aura. I like it. It's white and it's an enchant creature. Has base power and toughness 2/2 and has flying travel. Activated abilities can't be activated and its controller gets a Minotaur deck. This is what Benson was talking about just the other day. Right? I mean, I used to think I was indecisive, but now I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just a little too lazy. Bit of a lazy person here. Had to read that last word. Really had to read that last word. Its controller gets a Minotaur deck. So you just sub out their deck, right? My AI card sucks. Well, this one's not too bad. Surge of Death, surging and splurging here on the show. Should we give this a pass? I saw that E as an I. Yes, I'm sure it is a Minotaur deck, right? Anybody here use a waterbed? Are those still a thing? You want to make it a little more bouncy, just add spring water. This sucker, let's fail it. I don't know how you're going to, let's give it a fail. Good morning, Kylan Perdon. Nice to see you here. We're failing MTG cards here that the AI is giving us. The poor AI. Can't do it. Why'd the criminal take a shower? Because he wanted to make a clean getaway. This thing's non-functional. How are we going to give your opponents a Minotaur deck? This is like Brody in the morning. What's all with all these magic cards? Don't. On Unified Aslant. All right, we got another one here to look at here, you folks. All right, if you're a broom and you're late to the show, perhaps you overswept. But everybody's starting to trickle in here this morning, not oversweeping. Just to look at some AI cards and have a couple of punt this morning. All right, what's a mayonnaise jar say to you when you open the fridge? Close the door, I'm dressing. Unified Aslan. If it's neither day or night, it becomes day as Unified Aslan enters the battlefield. Is this a weird white counterspell? Gotta fail it. If it's neither day or night, It becomes day as Unified Aslan enters the battlefield. 2, create a colorless don't. Don't. It's White's version of a counter spell. It is. Double don't. Double don't. We're gonna fail this one, Bob. Bob's got thumbs down for this one. All right. Well, if you're heading off to class today and you haven't got your homework done, make sure you just eat it. Especially if the teacher told you it was a piece of cake. Let's fail this. We'll move on to the next one here this morning. Well, fair, overpower, non-functional. We like functional magic cards like this one. We saw it yesterday. This is like kind of where we left off. Soul Scout. Hey, sisters, soul sisters. What do you got? Soul Scout, 1 blue and 3. Flying, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may untap Soul Scout. It gains control of target artifact or creature. We did already, once again, pick this up yesterday on the AI. And now we got folks in the chat. How do you guys fix a broken pumpkin? With pumpkin patch. That's right. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. Do you folks like tracking the prices of magic cards? Is there enough information out there, or is there just too much gall darn information? With spoilers coming out, there's been a lot of chatter on the world of squirrels. That's right. The Earl of Squirrel, where has he been? It's been a spell since I've cast my eyes upon him in the comment section, but I'm glad you folks are here. We'll keep in touch with Earl. A little bit of chatter on the world of Magic the Gathering. It's my favorite when spoiler season comes out, not because I'm super excited about the new gameplay, not because I'm super excited about the new mechanics, not because I'm super excited about the new cost of the packs or the card interactions. No, it is the card interactions that I'm excited about. You know what really gets my goat? Goat Dapper. When a new set gets spoiled and there's interactions that are just a couple of days away and people start picking up on some of the synergy that have been happening for some time and just not quite been good enough to play in Magic the Gathering decks. I like seeing new card interactions. I've got an article here for you folks this morning about a card that we spoke about just earlier this week. I think we talked about it Friday and Monday of last week, a card that's making waves, and it's from the Odyssey block. And I just want to let you know, I think there is going to be prophecy box break coming to the Dual Brain channel that I might have to jump in on. But let's take a look at this article here. Squirrels are making a comeback. Squirrels and slime. There's a card that's just bumped up in price due to some new card interactions, and I don't know what the market feels about it. So I'm going to ask you folks, let's go. How you doing here, folks? Squirrel card making a 470% price spike. Something to talk about here this morning. Squirrels. I know there's some folks that like Squirrel Tribal, and there's some folks that are playing Chatterfang in Commander. And this card that we're going to talk about here this morning is no exception. It's a card that's got synergy with Squirrels, and this new card, the Ooze card. Let's take a look. This, you know what it is, right? All right, let's have a look at this. Sit down, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy a little bit of discussion with this Magic the Gathering card from Matt Basil. If a parsley farmer gets sued, can you garnish his wages? Perhaps. But the Magic the Gathering card Nantuker Shrine is suddenly spiking in price. This green enchant has gone from just $1.40 a week ago, according to Goldfish, and to much more considerable $8 rate. That's a hefty increase of 470%, and the price rise shows no signs of slowing down just yet. Nantuko Shrine's an old card that's never ever been reprinted except one printing in 2002 from Odyssey. With fewer copies in supply, that makes it sort of a card that's practically susceptible to sudden price rises. The stock on this is not going to be very deep, especially at the vendor stores, when exactly the right combo comes along with the murders at Karlov Manors. All right. Slimes Against Humanity. Morning, Johnny Siddons. Nice to see you. The Murders of Karlov Manor spoilers have brought us a new combo with the ooze, sorcery, and cards like Slime Against Humanity. That's right. You're absolutely 100% right. And last week we read a really interesting article about singleton commander cards and interactions with singleton formats. And I thought it was a really good read and a precursor to what we're talking about here. We were talking about Dragon's Approach and Red and cards that can get you there, or we can even go back and take a look at some of these articles and discuss how close we were. And going forward, if you think that the synergies with singleton formats is going to be a thing in Magic the Gathering, don't even kid yourself. We talked about Magic cards that you're always looking over in Commander, and I just want to bring up that article here because there was a couple of cards that I thought were quite good to consider when we're talking about singleton formats. Slime Against Humanity, right? This one here. This is the article we read just a couple of weeks ago were cheap singleton pickups. Cheap pickups for the Commander Singleton rule breakers, all right? We were talking about Dragon's Approach, Relentless Rats, Persistent Petitioners. These are three cards that allow you to have more than just one copy of it in the Commander deck, and there's some synergy in this article that we covered about a week and a half ago, discussing singleton format in Commander. Now, I don't know anybody else other than Murray Cooper who's playing Dragon's Approach, but maybe you are too. So there were some support cards for a couple of different colors, including black and red. And the Dragon's Approach, we also talked about the Cheering Fanatic, a card that could possibly help you swarm off and take multiple Dragon's Approach. But what does that mean? Is this going to be something that continues to be popular with Wizards of the Coast? Making Commander Singleton again? Locket of Yesterday's spells you play cost one less to play for each spell with the same name as that spell in your graveyard. So the Locket is definitely a card that can be played with the ooze, the Slime Against Humanity. So get yourself a Locket. This thing, I wonder, we should revisit it and see if it's ticked up in price. But this is something that boosts singleton card interactions in your deck. The Locket of Yesterday. Yes to you, yes to me, yesterday, and the Fanatic. So let's read on and talk just a little bit more about the slime card here. I like it. So the Nantuko Shrine, if you're just hanging out with us here this morning, wherever you are, if you're getting ready to go to work, the Nantuko Shrine is a card from Odyssey from 2002, and we were talking about singleton formats, especially red and black, including Dragon's Approach, the Locket of Yesterday, making singleton formats a little bit more viable. And as perhaps as a speculator, cards like the Locket of Yesterday are going to be something that you want to pick up and get into your collection should some kind of singleton card synergy get printed in the future. Yes, we talked about it, and here it is right on our doorstep. Maybe you don't play red, maybe you don't play green, but an artifact is seemingly something that goes in just about any deck. And then Tuku Shrine could be a card that you want to pick up to go along with it. And Tuku Shrine, the card that creates swirl tokens each time anyone casts a card at a rate of one squirrel for each card in this with the same name in the graveyard. So we're talking about I have the same name. Slime Against Humanity is a green card that, just like Rat Colonnade or Persistent Petitioners, you can have any number of it in your deck. You can also have a sneeze. The obvious play is to make the ooze tribal. Magic the Gathering Commander deck, stuff it in full slime against humanity, and then use Nantuko Shrine to create a dozen of squirrel tokens each and every turn. A dozen. Dozens of cousins. Well, this one's going to get the buzzer. All right, we've been keeping an eye on the ooze card to see if they'll skyrocket in price when it turns out we should have been watching the squirrels. We should have been watching the squirrels, right? I have a couple foil versions of Nantuko Shrine in my opposition squirrel deck. Now, there's a man who's ahead of the curve. Kylan Perdon. Nice to see ya. And the dual brain here. Keeping an eye on the Scooz cards to see if they'll skyrocket in price when it turns out we should have been watching squirrels. Slime Against Humanity produces ooze tokens and gets stronger with ooze creatures. So we thought this Magic the Gathering creature type was going to see some spikes. A few cards like Biogenic Ooze have gotten a few dollars pricier, but the impact has been low up till now. Just when we're thinking about Slime Against Humanity, it failed to move the needle. Nantuko Shrine blast through the ceiling. Right? It's almost like you can see some foreshadowing from Wizards of the Coast, sort of foreshadowing with the creature ooze type. And it's been a while since they printed the ooze type. There's been a few that have been printed over the last couple of years, but really to get them to have some support, and then a card like this comes along and it says, "Wow, all right, brain, what's faster, hot or cold?" Hot, because you can catch a cold, of course. All right, from Wargamer, we got a few more little bits and pieces to say in the best free strategy games in MTG. So keep your eye on this Nantuko Shrine. I don't know if I'm going to be FOMOing or buying into this. Let's take a look at the foil price of this card here for Kylan. Nantuko Shrine. They're shrining. Not Nantuko Shade. Nantuko Shrine. Wine me, dine me, and Nantuko Shrine me here this morning. The foil version of this card is $46 and it's been spiking. So Kylan Perdon's doing well to be sitting on this. That's why it does pay to be long in the market of Magic the Gathering and hold on to your cards for a period of time. Some cards that seemingly are no good tend to be great in the long term, and this card's no exception. The Shrine. Let's take a look at the chart on this. We'll hit the tabletop button and take a look. Yes, a big old-fashioned spike here this morning. What do we got here? Spiking. Woof. When was this last seeing some activity? Brody just wants to put on charts here this morning. We definitely want to. Modern Horizons. Is this even a fact? Is this? No, this can't be. Did this thing take a tick up in price? Could be a bit of a over pump here this morning. Nantuko Shrine was up to about $600 in foil. I mean, I think some folks have been considering we're going to get some decent squirrel tribal for some time, but the ooze card is the one that's put this over the mark, right? Again, speculating. Speculating can be fun if you're on the right side of things, but I'd rather sit like a fellow like Kylan Perdon has done, and he's already sitting on a couple of copies of these. What do you right? Do you hold on to them? Do you trade them? They're sold out in stores. $19 was the sell price, and it's gone far beyond that. I would say you're going to have to wait for a restock on this one, or if you want to FOMO into it. Let's take a look at eBay right now. There's a couple of copies for sale for $28 to $23, and this is sort of what happens. It's cyclical. Spoilers come out. Don't get rid of vintage foils. Good morning, Mr. Mox, man. Nice to see you here this morning. Give me a boomstick in the comments section. I love it. Nice to see you here. What'd the cucumber say to the pickle? Oh, you mean a great deal to me, Mr. Moxman. So this is sort of what happens. We're gonna have to wait for a restock on the Nantuko Shrine if you're looking to get a copy of it. But this is what happens when the spoilers come out. People start finding new card interactions that work really well together, and then they get sold out in the stores like Card Kingdom and TCG Player. And people who have listings that are on eBay, if they're not watching and they don't see, this is the difference. If you've got folks that are selling on eBay and have eBay stores that don't watch the prices of Magic cards and track them closely with the card interactions that are happening in the world, they may be a little slow. Some people just put their cards up and just forget about it. So some people aren't watching the prices daily with new spoilers coming out. And that's where you might be able to pick up a copy of this for the old price. Perhaps on eBay, there might be able to find a listing. So if you want to try and snipe a copy, that would be someplace to look. When the vendors are all sold out and everybody's waiting for a restock, then restock price is going to be a little bit different than the old price, of course. And then you can always head to the private market like eBay or TCG Player to see if there's somebody who still has the card listings up for the old pricing. Maybe you can get yourself a copy. If not, I would suggest highly not to rush and FOMO into this card until we see a little bit of flushing out of the market and wait for a restock over at the vendor store. Now, of course, the price is probably going to go up a little bit, but every once in a while you can nab something for its old price from somebody who doesn't tune into the morning show and notice that a card is spiking. Now, I don't know if you guys have had this problem before when you're sitting down in the morning and you're taking a look at the movers and the shakers and you're seeing card interactions that are new and that are exciting and that are spiking. I've even gone to the eBay store and tried to add some stuff to my cart, and then just be wary that this can happen. Some vendors will actually cancel your order from eBay. That's a shenanigan that people tend to play. If they're a good seller, they'll probably honor the old price and let you have it. But some folks, I've tried to buy cards that have spiked sort of overnight and then try to nab them from eBay. And I've had people actually shut down the listing or say the listing is canceled and you don't get there and you don't end up getting the card. So watch out for that. A decent eBay seller will honor the pricing. It happened to me a couple of times with some higher end Magic cards that were popular. I think it happened to me with Library Alexandria. I tried to order one before a price spike or right around when a price spike happened, and then the seller contact. What do you call those folks that do that? They have listings up, they don't watch the prices of Magic cards, and you go to buy it and then they realize, hey, the price on that card just doubled, and then they, after you've got it in your cart and you've actually paid for it, they pull the listing and say, I either couldn't find the card, I couldn't fulfill the order, sorry. And then you see it relisted a couple of weeks later. It's kind of a nasty game, but be aware. Don't. It's happened to me a couple. It's scummy, right? That's kind of a scummy type of thing to do. I know, but yes, be aware that can happen. It's just part of the game. All right, what's orange and sounds like a parrot? A carrot. And if you haven't hit the like button, make sure you share it. We're going to take a look at some Magic the Gathering cards here this morning. I want to thank you folks for tuning in. Well, we've got folks from Canada too tuning into the show. If you've made it here and made it this far, I want to thank you all for tuning in, no matter where you are in the world of Magic the Gathering. That goes for you, Dual Brain. That goes for you, Richie Dubs. Well, I know you folks aren't in Canada, but we got the Moxman coming in from Canada. We got friends and folks, friends of the channel here on a Tuesday edition. We're going to take a look at the cards that are moving and shaking. What do we got? Monday, Modern, Tuesday, Pioneer. Pioneer is the flavor of the day, folks. You know what that means. We got another card to talk to and talk about here this morning. Let's get ready to move and shake in our seat. Let's look at what's happening on the Pioneer list here this morning. We've got all the folks in the house. I appreciate you folks for watching. It's time. That's part of the show. You can feel it in your feet, and you're moving in your seat. This is the morning Magic the Gathering stock and talk show with your host, Brody Alfonso. Hey, Blue Whip. We got some folks on the Twitch stream tuning in here this morning. I want to thank you for doing that. Hello, Blue Whip. I do like to connect with folks over on Twitch, especially Mr. DJ Virus. If you're tuning in this morning, DJ, I want to say thanks. All right, I wonder why the ball was getting bigger and bigger, but then it hit. All right, Mrs. Alfonso says it's either here or my career as a Magic the Gathering reporter. I've got some breaking news for her. The world's largest bedsheet has just been discovered, and more on that as the story unfolds. Until then, let's take a look at this list here. It's Pioneer, it's Tuesday, and we're just getting settled in to make the world a bit better a place no matter where you are, folks. Do what you do with a little bit of integrity, honesty, and a good attitude will get you a long way in this world. Don't let others talk you out of it. All right, Anointed Procession finding its way up at the top again today. Here's a card that just you can almost think that this thing would be super good long term. You can almost think that a card like this, when it was coming out about $5, would do something in the way of doubling season. And yes, there was a period of time. This is a good omen when you see a card like this, and it's effectively similar to doubling season in casting cost and playability because it makes tokens. Token synergy. Card in standard that doubles the amount of tokens. How do you feel about MetaZoo? Well, I thought MetaZoo was a thing of the past. I didn't think it survived. I thought MetaZoo was going to zero. I heard something about that over on my little brother Rudy's channel. I think he made a video about it. I didn't watch it. I saw the thumbnail, but it kind of told me that MetaZoo was a thing of the past. Man, it's a real zoo. Speaking of zoo, it's a real zoo in here. We got 13 folks tuning in from around the world just to hang out with me and start their day, and I couldn't thank you more because this is the best part of my day. 6:30, hands down, the best part of the day. Here's another card on the movers and the shakers list, the Oz list. Okay, well, I want to take a quick look at Anointed Procession first, and then we're going to get to the Oz list because that's a card that I thought was going to be very good. But it goes to show, like a card like this, I was getting it in packs when the Amonkhet block released, and it was only a $3 to $5 rare, as well as Authority of the Consuls from Kaladesh and another card that people like to play from in and around that block called Smothering Tide. That's a card that was printed just in the Ravnica block, and you looked at it when you opened it in your packs and you're like, why isn't this more money? Like this card seems good, seems playable. Why is it only $3 to $5? But sometimes it takes a little bit of time. You got to marinate. You got to let it sit. So don't use your intuition. That's an important thing. If you see something that generates tokens, if you see something that doubles the amount of mana, if you see something that doubles the amount of artifacts, or if you see something that works well with wheels, especially wheels that make you discard your hand and draw 7, it's always a good idea. These are like evergreen mechanics that people are always going to want to play. So when a new set comes out and there's a card that's only $2, $3, or $4 and you open it, especially a card like Anointed Procession, it can be very misleading because the market is so early and the cards are in circulation. There's plenty of them being opened, and I think we traded this away. I tried this card in mono white in a life gain deck. I liked it, but I didn't like it enough to hold on to it and keep running it. But it's always a good idea maybe to just hold on to some of those cards because long term they can definitely be staple later on in the game. And this is a perfect example of a card that started out around the $3 to $5 mark. Here we are. Let's take a look at the chart on this one. What did this come out at? $1.70 or $3. And I played at the Amonkhet pre-release. And I think I opened this in my pre-release packs. I don't know how MetaZoo survived so long. Honestly, I never understood it. The art was no good, and it would definitely be art matters for all TCGs. I've never bought any MetaZoo. I did pick up some Flesh and Blood. I did. But MetaZoo, I never tried it. Here's a card that come out early in pre-release. I think I even got this in my pre-release kit, and I was like, "Wow, this seems really good. I want to build with it." It was $3, and then it sort of trickled up in price to around the $5 to $6 mark. And this is where I sort of said to myself, I think I even made the mistake of buy listing this card in and around War of the Spark. Got about 12 to $14 for it. I may still have a copy of it kicking around somewhere. I hope I do. But this is the thing, if some of those cards that you pick up in your pre-release kits or early when a set comes out can actually have some pretty long-term value if you know how to spot them. In and around Strixhaven, this card took a top at around $40. $40, right? It's quite good. And now it's sitting around the $50 mark. And what do we notice any patterns on this chart here this morning? Ooh, the double bottom. No, we're looking for a rounding top. Now we're looking for this pattern right here, the cup and handle. All right. So stock charts are quite easily recognizable when you look back on them, right? You can look back on stock charts and sort of try to recognize patterns. But this here, to me, when we see this seems like a cup and handle pattern starting to form here. Very bullish very bullish pattern. It's a well-known continuation stock pattern chart that signals a bullish market trend. It's the same as above rounding bottom, but features a handle around the rounding bottom. The handle resembles a flag or pennant, and once completed, you can see the market break out in a bullish upward trend. So this is definitely looks like a bit of a cup and handle patterns that's formed here. Very easy to look back on these charts and find patterns that are recognizable. It's very hard to do it in the moment when you're looking at these charts in real time, but it doesn't hurt to take a look and see if you folks can recognize some patterns. I've been saying this will be printed soon, especially with the secondary market. Anointed Procession, yes, definitely. What'll happen is Wizards of the Coast going to get demand from players because these game pieces. That's right, all these game pieces should be free, right? $49. Let's see decks using it. There's plenty of decks using it. And I know we're talking about Pioneer, and simply because this card is playable, look at all the commander decks using it. And look at the color spread on all these. You've got Naya deck, Mardu deck, you've got Orzov deck, you've got all the Boros deck playing it. There's all these different iterations of commander decks playing the Anointed Procession. If you haven't got one already, I would suggest you wait for a reprint to try and open it in a pack or get it without paying the $50. If you're sitting on copies and you played from Amonkhet, that's why I always like to say time in the market is a little bit better than timing in the market, and it pays to play. It does. It pays to play Magic the Gathering and get out to pre-release because you could pick up some of these cards. And like what I'm starting to notice is like the 5-year cycle where you would just buy Magic cards and hold them, whether they're sealed products or packs or boxes, and you can just double your money and make some free tendies is over. And it's over to some degree with some of the new products. It's always a gamble to see whether play boosters, the first box of play boosters, if it's going to be a hit, if it's going to be good, if it's going to be good long term as a hold, as a sealed product. but I'm starting to find out like how many years back are we from Amonkhet release? Well, this could be our 5 year. This is it here. This is a 5 year turnaround. All right. So it does pay to play Magic the Gathering in a sense. If you went to pre-release and you opened this in your pre-release kits, and even if you opened a couple of packs, don't be so hasty to trade out of your singles just because they're not moving as fast as you would like them to. This is about the 2 to 3 year mark. This card only saw $10. So it can take about 5 years for something that's really good and that's printed in standard to actually make a difference. And if you got a notion that a card is good, here's a card I opened as well. The Ozlith. I saw this one in Ikoria and I really got excited because it's only 1 mana, right? This one's moving a little faster, but it's already raised the bar up to $42.95. It's definitely a playable card, something in Commander. And if a fella plays counters, this is a card that you're going to want to try. I liked it because I was going to try it in like a shops deck with Arcbound Ravager, or even in a green deck with Rishkar, something that puts counters on cards. And this came out, it was only sitting at $3 to $5 in and around double masters. And then we saw a good tick up in price here around Strixhaven, just starting to get some interest, but now we're getting into that 4 year mark where any of the Ikoria that you opened, and you may possibly have a copy of the Ozlist sitting in there, it's going to be worthwhile revisiting that bulk because this $3 to $5 rare that was fairly cheap for the first 2 to 3 years of its life cycle is now starting to get some attention, and it's up to $40. So I like to put my chaff on ice for a period of time. And then if I'm thinking about getting rid of something, like I want to almost go back through my stuff and see if I've got a couple copies of the Ozlith, because like that's almost $100 in 2 cards, a copy of Anoinus Procession and the Ozlith. And if you want to get yourself something good before a reprint occurs, when you see this, you're in a 3 to 5 year market cycle, and now these cards are worth quite a bit of money, like the $40 to $50 mark. That could be a good time to buy list them. I'm not trying to tell you to sell your Magic cards, but if you've got something from your pre-release kit that was $3 to $5, and in 5 years you can dig it up and get $50 for it, I think you're doing okay. And then if you're going to trade into something, try to get into some evergreen stocks, like maybe some reserve list or some high-end old cards, like some Antiquities or some Arabian Nights singles. Lots of decks playing it. Of course, the Hardened Scales using the Oz list. Let's read the card just for those of you who aren't familiar. It's a legendary artifact, so this is good. It also would go into like a Legendary Matters commander deck. 1 mana for this legendary artifact. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozlith. So the counters go onto the Ozlith. If it leaves the battlefield, that doesn't matter if it gets blinked or removed by your opponent, something comes in. Your Walking Ballista counters, they go on the Ozlith. Now your Rishkar counters, they go on the Ozlith. Any counters that you have, boom, they go right on there. Now, even this is why this card is even better, because now there's this neat mechanic that we're seeing more and more. It's like a vigilance counter or a lifelink counter or uh, a trample counter. People are Wizards is bringing back the mechanics in the form of a counter. So like a vigilance counter, I know we've seen that on plenty of cards. They give a creature a vigilance counter. So rather than giving the creature just vigilance, they put it in the form of a counter. So this thing can take the counters off. I'm gonna have to talk to Sean to see. He's playing a really cool deck with the commander that says if you remove 3 counters from this commander or from creatures you control, you get to go look through your deck and put something onto the battlefield with power and toughness. I can't remember the name of the commander, but it counters matter with that commander. It's black, green, and white. If anyone can help me out with it. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozlith has any counters on it, you may move all the counters from the Ozlith onto target creatures. So it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a 1/1 counters. It could be a vigilance counter. It could be a lifelink counter. It could be any kind of counter. that ends up on a creature, and then you just get to move them onto your Walking Ballista, maybe your Arcbound Ravager, or onto anything. And it's only 1 mana, so look out for this card. It's probably going to see a reprint fairly soon. What kind of other versions do we have? Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle Earth was reprinted, and it's sitting at $50. This card is just a monster of a card. A really good card for 1 mana. I think people were sleeping on it. It's so good. Could have picked it up for $3 to $5. Now it's down to 50. That 5-year market trend. What do we got here? Sarkhan Unbroken, a Khan's Tarkir card. How cool to see this! Is it? Really cool. Okay, green, blue, and red. I'm gonna have to refresh myself because it's been a while since I looked at anything from Khans. But we got this. Let's take a look at Sarkhan Unbroken. What do you folks think about this card? Moving and shaking its way up the list here this morning is coming in at $20. What was it previously? All right, Sarkhan's got this ability +1, draw a card, then add a mana of any color. Sarkhan's good for that. He can add red, and he likes dragons. So I need me a couple of anointed processions. I'm waiting on that reprint. Yes, that's the best way to do it. Patience, my friend. Good things come to those who wait. -2, create a 4/4 red dragoon creature token with flying, and then a -8, search your library for any number of dragon creature cards and put them onto the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. Dragon's getting quite the support lately. Lots of people like them. Why is this card spiking? I don't really know. The death of collecting. We would have had another Pokemon except without the cute little things to sell it. Well, let's take a look. Let's pull back the price chart on Sarkhan and see what we can see. What does this look like here? We got a bit of a seesaw action happening. Head and shoulders? No. This is more. We have a double top on Sarkhan? Not a double top. Oh, that's our next article. Spoiler alert. Double bottom? Not quite. A wedge. Does this look wedgy? Well, it could possibly fall into the pattern of a wedge, okay? The pattern that represents a lightning of price movement between the support and the resistance lines. This can either be a rising wedge or a falling wedge. Unlike the triangle, the wedge doesn't have a horizontal trend line and is characterized by either 2 upward trend lines or 2 downward trend lines. For example, downward wedge, it's thought that the price will break through the resistance, and for an upward wedge, the price is hypothesized to break through the support. This it means that the wedge is a reversal pattern as the breakout is opposite to the general trend. So this almost looks like a bit of a wedge pattern happening here with Sarkhan, which would mean a possible breakout to the upside. So this here, we've got a bit of a channel here. Now we're going to have to zoom in a little bit to take a look at this chart because I want to see where the resistance lines are. Bit of a wedge pattern forming here, right? 2 of them. Could this mean that this be a breakout to the upside? Right in and around now? Possibly. The Sarkhan could be good. I would say maybe one more leg up in price and then a softening. It could continue this pattern for a little while, which would mean it would put it at a new all-time high of around $35. When that happens, we're gonna have to wait and see. Just because a card makes it on the movers and the shakers list doesn't mean you got to run out and buy it. What it does is it means just take a look at the pattern on it and tell me what you think. Does it look like something that could go north or could it go south? Right now, it seems to be making this continued wedge pattern here. A couple of triangles here for you. And then like now after it's come up, it's bumped down, come up again, bump down. We could see another leg up. But the problem is, always keep this in mind. This is reprintable. So this some of this theory might go out the window. unless we're dealing with some reserve list. The reserve list a little bit more stable. Card from Cons, Dragons of Tarkir, actually could be a subject for a reprint. What other printings do we have of this Sarkhan? We got the Year of the Rabbit. Okay, this is another one. 2024. I think folks really like this art. New version. This one's online only. War of the Spark Masterpieces. This one looks kind of feeble. I don't know about this. I like the original better. And then the Dragons of Tarkir foil coming in at 31 bucks and 30 bucks. What decks are we using it? Gotta be dragon decks. Of course the dragon decks are using it. The Dragon. And we got Miram, the Sentinel Worm, Kenrith, the Return King, running some Planeswalkers in here. And then we got the Surak, the Dragon Claw, and Tiamat. Brody, how do you feel about MetaZoo? Reserve list matters, right? All right, let's keep on keeping. I think that would be the death of collecting Magic personally. We would have another Pokemon. Humor me. What advice would you give if WotC cracks that piggy bank and abolishes the reserve list? What advice would you give? I'm gonna have to think about that. What advice would I give? Well, they've already they're always trying to find ways around the reserve list. We saw it with the From the Vault relics. That was one place. We saw it with Phyrexian Negator, and then we saw it again with Magic 30. I think what I would say is, I would say, what advice? I would say batten down the hatches and just hold on for a bumpy ride. And this is why, because there's no point in reprinting dual lands when they can make triple land, right? They can make cards that are better than the cards on the reserve list. Like that's great. I think it's more likely that we're going to see Wizards of the Coast make better cards than cards on the reserve list. They can always make a 0 mana artifact that taps for 4 mana and you sacrifice it, so it's even better than the Lotus. So I would say look out for even more powerful cards than what's on the reserve list before they go to break the reserve list. I mean, if you could just make a 0 mana artifact that comes into play tapped, that taps for a mana of any color, that hasn't been done yet. I would say be on the lookout for stuff like that as an indicator and a way around the reserve list. I would be more concerned about them going around the reserve list and just like making better land, like a land that counts as a island swamp mountain that counts as an island swamp mountain, taps for one of each of those, blue, black, red, and then comes into play untapped. It'd be like a mix. Understand they can make better cards, but that does not sell boxes. I think they would break the reserve list to generate revenue. We have already seen many cards better than reserve list. There will be a release those cards, though, can't be in standard or horizons, right? Okay, so the advice that I would give, dry powder, okay? Have dry powder ready to go. That is the advice I would give. That's what I would do. I would say if the day comes when Wizards goes ahead and breaks the reserve list, I would definitely have some cash on hand ready to buy as much as I could when the weak cabbage hands get flushed out and dump all of their 30-year-old cards. That's the advice I would give. I would say this.
Buy low, sell high, that's my motto. I may just quit my job at the power plant and become a full-time stock market guy.
How about that for advice? I would say have dry powder ready and ready to pounce. Okay. If they break the reserve list and weak cabbage paper hands start getting flushed out and people say, that's it, I'm out of Magic, I want to be the guy that's ready to jump on that and start picking up those diamonds for pennies. Okay. Because the original printings are always hold value because the nostalgia and the cardboard is like 30 to 25 years old, and as a collectible piece, I would say they're always going to have some kind of intrinsic value. Then we flush out the weak hands and then give it about 5 to 10 years and see where we're at, if you can afford to wait. Terror of the Peaks, how does that sound? There's an answer. All right. Best answer ever. Thank you, Gaming Bob. Love you. That's a tough question. I had to think about that. What do you guys think of the Terror of the Peaks? Another dragon card, right? We got a friend in the play group who plays dragons, and the dragons are a little bit of a battle cruiser style of commander. They're quite big, but they do get quite scary when they hit the battlefield. And dragons are now finding ways to get more and more dragons onto the battlefield. And this is no exception. Terror of the Peaks is a 5/4 flying. Spells your opponent's cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast. So if you want to try and bolt this thing or get rid of it, you're going to have to pay 3 life. It's almost like Ward 3 life. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power. Dragon. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power. So when you run, let's take a look here. Let's take a look at the decks using it. Let's take a look at the chart. I want to see what decks are using it because you got the Dragon, this card. So the interaction with the Terror of the Peaks is the Dragon, right? This is the one that says when it attacks, you get to put stuff onto the battlefield. Is it whenever one or more dragons you control attack, draw that many cards, then you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is, you draw a card for each attacking dragon, and then you get to put a permanent onto the battlefield. And if you've got the Terror of the Peaks on the battlefield, it enters the battlefield and then it starts dealing damage equal to its power to any target. So free dragons, right? That's why Terror of the Peaks is so good. You get that ETB triggers. Modern Horizons, I like Terror. What's it up to these days? It's up to, well, you see this small, see this. I think he's become a bit of an I think he started selling firearm, right? I mean, it's not so much like a T-Rex who would be more of a small arms dealer, but the Terror of the Peaks, he's definitely selling some firearm, right? Putting stuff onto the battlefield and getting stuff for free. Yeah, T-Rex is probably a better example, but the Terror of the Peaks, he's packing, right? Benson, nice to see you here. Let's take a look at the chart. That's right. Terror of the Peaks, breathing fire. T-Rex, a small arms dealer. You can get some of these weapons into your Magic the Gathering collection. I mean, that's quite an expensive card. $42. I mean, I would rather just, keep picking up a couple of packs. And I mean, if you've got this mythic in your collection, it's actually quite good. I think I even have one. Any notable stock symbols here for us to look at? I mean, this takes a little bit of thinking to analyze this chart here. In and around Double Masters, this thing was about $12, and it took a poke up to 20 around Strixhaven. Now I'm in Canada, so that's in Canadian pesos, so you got to add 30%, right? And then now just a softening in price, and then like it's now going north again. A card that could see a reprint, but if you're holding on to this from opening it up, or you got copies and you're not really that fond of it, we've got Terror of the Peaks, the Ozlet, and Anointed Procession. That's $150 at 3 cards. That could have easily cost you 15 when they first released. Always hold on to your chaff. Like I say, the 3 to 5 year turnover on sealed product where you're doubling your money doesn't seem to be the where to go. And Wizards seems to be rewarding players who open packs and shuffle stacks of Magic the Gathering and then hold on to their cards for that 5 year period, because the some of these rares and mythics seem to be quite expensive, and they're moving. And if they have potential to, I mean, here's the thing: when you're cracking packs of a new set, you should be asking yourself a couple of questions. When some people I've seen at draft and they just take the chaff and then they throw it on the table and they leave it there at the store for somebody else. But look at cards. If it's got a synergy that's evergreen, meaning it can go straight into Commander, or if it can go to Legacy, or if it can go to Vintage, if you think it has a possibility to go to Vintage, like look at this is a Vintage card. Dredge is running Terror of the Peaks. Why not? You start bringing stuff out of the bin, and then all of a sudden you've got Terror of the Peaks on board. That's like free damage. Knew I should have bought more terrors. The printer is on such overdrive. I forget to buy more cards than I remember. I like to still keep it kind of fun. That's why I like pre-release. I do like pre-release because I can get a copy of. I can get a couple of copies and some new flavor in my collection, and I can sit on my pre-release kits for a little while and see if anything goes up or if I want to build with it later. Because I generally don't have deck ideas that go with them right there and then. Now, here's a card for everybody watching. Shout out to Mr. Moxman here this morning. We got a Mox Amber making its way on the movers and the shakers list. Here's a card. Here's a card, Legendary Artifact. For example, this is a card that was very cheap to buy, right? Heck yeah, dude. I love drafting. I do love drafting. I went to a store, or I went to the Coliseum the other day. I got some actual news for that. I might save that for a little bit later. But we were playing at the Coliseum the other day, and there's actually some folks in the play group that don't like limited formats. There are people who just don't want to play limited. They're like, nope, I don't want to play limited. I want to build decks. I want to brew, and that's all I want to do. All I want to do is brew my own decks. I don't want to play limited. It's too much research, and it's just not for me. So there are folks that don't go in for limited events. They just rather stay away from them. I myself am fond of the limited events. I like getting some new synergies, and I like sort of the even playing field where you have to be a bit creative and find synergies in the cards that you have to try and make it work. It does sort of suck when you get a poopy pack and you don't have anything in it that can win you the game, or it's just kind of mid. But that's the part of the experience. It is. All right. Any pet owners in the chat here today? My dog ate a bunch of Scrabble pieces over the weekend. I'm just waiting a couple of days to see if this is going to spell disaster. The Mox Amber is a card that it's really good in Commander. Now it's really good, but it does sort of become a rock that does nothing at some point in time. I know anybody who's playing this can definitely relate. You've probably had this happen to you. If you don't have your commander on board, it doesn't do anything for you. This card's been. Let's analyze the Mox Amber here for some folks here. There's definitely some. What do we got here? There's definitely something to discuss here. This is started off in Dominaria Remastered. This thing actually took a tick down to about $10, and in and around Eldraine, getting some support around Strixhaven, and then New Capenna started to see a tick up in price, and then in and around Brothers War, this took a dive, and now it's sitting at around the $10. How many printings have we got of this now? Plenty of printings to go around. Dominaria, Brothers War Artifacts, Schematic. This was printed in retrofoil a couple of times. It's okay, Hillbilly. $28 and the retrofoil Schematic is definitely the one. You want to get that over at like a Twiddler's place if you can hit the Schematic. Decks using it? Well, Captain Sisse, I can tell you that. The Asmo Food deck, this is where I'm playing it. I'm playing it in Modern. it's tough in Commander if you have a costly Commander. It definitely is. It's kind of a little bit challenging to get out there. But in a Rog and Rograk and Silas Ren deck, okay, let's go over here. Let's just go over to MTG Top 8. Let's do a little search because I want to see this. Let's go Mox Amber. This is a good way to see EDH. You want to see where the juice is at? The juice is in the house, and the house is in the juice. Mox Amber. All right. Here's all the decks running it. And I'll tell you right now, the most effective deck for running this is one that I've tried, and it's this deck right here, Silas Ren and Rograk. Now, you've also got Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy, who's running it, and these are decks that are top commander decks in CEDH. That's the highest power level of commander that you're going to play. Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy is a 2-mana commander, and Rograk and Silas Ren is, well, Rograk's a 0-mana. So you're going to want to play this, and if you take a look at the top 8 decks playing it, this is where you're going to want to find a Mox Amber. Rograk costs you 0, so it gets your Amber online right away. Silas Ren, he's part of the deck. You know, legendary matters, artifact matters, and that's all fine and good. But I don't see such a benefit. The downside to the Mox Amber is if you don't have a legendary creature on the battlefield, then you can't use it. So Magda, Brazen Outlaw, how much is this commander to cast? I just want to take a quick look here. Magda. Magda's 2. All right, so 2-mana commanders, 0-mana commanders, or 1-mana commanders is definitely going to be a place where this Mox Amber is more effective. So it's not to say that it's not a great card, but in Commander, it's tough to play. In a deck like Asmo Food, we're playing cards like... Lost you there for a second. In Asmo Food, which is modern, we're going to be playing cards like Emery, Lurker of the Lock, and the Asmo Call the Kardakai, the Sticular de Kazda. And then the Grinding Station is the artifact card, Kinnan again, and Commander, and then Sisse, the Weatherlight Captain. This is Magda's a cool card. Okay, let's go back. Let's take a look at Magda. The Brazen Outlaw. Dwarf Berserker, right? 1 red and 1 for a legendary. So you want to play the Mox Amber somewhere that you can get it onto the battlefield and online quite easily. It's a great card. It's just it can be a bit of a brick in your hand if you don't have a way to use it. Magda's a legendary. You need the legendary. She gives dwarfs 1-0, and whenever a dwarf you control becomes untapped, you get a treasure token. You sack 5 treasures, and you search for an artifact or dragon. Put that onto the battlefield, like maybe the Terror of the Peaks, and then shuffle your library. She can even go ahead and get the Mox Amber or your Mana Rocks. So that is definitely a cool commander. Good morning, Robert. Robert O'Brien. Hey, how you been, buddy? Nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Richie Dubs is loving the Magda card. A pretty decent card. Well, if you're going to play Magna, if you're going to play Commander, you want to throw in the Mox Amber. Another nice thing about the Mox Amber is it works well with Mox Opal because it gets you that sweet, sweet Metalcraft online, and that's always good. And we've got the Archangel of Tithe coming in on the list here this morning. This one will cost you $13, and it's from a set that I never opened any of Origins. I look back and I see these lists and I go, man, I really wish I had have opened some of these Origins and some of these older sets like Shadowmoor and Lorwyn, because there's some cards in there that I think have some pretty sustainable long-term value. This card, I'm not too familiar with it, so let's read it together. It's 3 white and 1. Archangel of Tithes. Oh, well, it's a mana tithe, isn't it? As long as Archangel of Tithe is untapped, creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1. Yes, there's the Tithe mechanic, right? As long as Archangel of Tithe is attacking, creatures can't block unless its controller pays 1. So it's on the swing and the defense, on the offense and the defense. What a neat card. So this, it's not legendary, but it could be a commander. It's showing up here on the Pioneer list, but I don't know. if it really is. Let's take a look at the chart for Magda here. This almost looks like the chart on a card we were watching earlier, where we have these sort of these wedges forming, or these channels. And that could be, and these are downward wedges. And that could be an indication that we were going to see a breakout to the upside, because each time we see one of these wedges, there's always an upside that comes right after it. So it's likely, if this doesn't see a reprint, that we'll probably see a bit of a tick, another breakout to the upside, and maybe some softening in price when it makes its next wedge. But that means the next stop for this card could be about 25 to 30 bucks. Not too bad. Deck's playing it. Where are we playing this? We are playing this in Commander. Now, she's not your Commander. She's definitely going to be an Angel. Definitely a card that we're going to be playing in Angel. It's snowing outside. OMG. I'm not too happy about that. We might get a little snow here. It's been warmer for the last couple of days there. Oh, Michael, what did one snowman say to the other? I smell carrots. Which Marvel character likes snowmen the least? Aw. All right, Tiamat. A big, goofy dragon, right? Multi-headed. This one, it's a Wooburg 2. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, search your library for up to 5 dragon cards not named Tiamat, and then each have different names, reveal them, and put them into your hand. This is a tutor? This is definitely a tutor for dragon. Dragon tutor, Tiamat. What do you call a snowman with a six-pack? The abdominable snowman. All right, Tiamat is making the movers and the shakers here today for Pioneer. Let's take a look at the chart. Let's roll it back. I know I have a few copies of this. It's kind of was a little bit underwhelming. Been plenty of printings on this one, including promos, secret. Is it in a secret layer? Yes, the list. That's yes. A promo is a secret layer. The list, Adventures in Forgotten Realms, and a few other printings at around $8 to $10. Tiamat's sitting at around the 10 12 bucks. On the Rogran Triumph, all these Triumphs are good stock, I feel, especially if you can find boxes of Capenna or Ikoria that are cheap to pick up for about that $85, $95 mark. I mean, it wasn't a set that sold incredibly well, and then there was lots of stock left over when it left, but that could be a way to get when it left rotation or left the print run, that could be a way to get some of these triumphs. They're gonna be fairly good. I know they're gonna get reprinted, but could you imagine, like, this would be a way for Wizards to break the reserve list? You could just make a triumph, like, essentially this could be better than a dual land. All it has to do is say doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, just enters the battlefield. So you make triumphs that don't enter the battlefield tapped. This is better than a dual land. If you can play a card like Spelunking or something that lets these come into the play untapped, or even Amulet of Vigor, it gets around that and it ends up being pretty darn good. The Triumphs, for a price, they could do snow covered by you. Yes, they could. We're doing snow covered shenanigans here. New Capenna, the Triumphs here hit a peak at about 20 bucks. And I think that goes for all of them. They're all going, like, now we've got some downward. Don't give them any ideas, right? I think that goes for all of them. I think really as lands, this is another thing that I say when you're opening new sets, keep an eye out for evergreen mechanics. Lands are good because they're colorless and they can go in any deck. Things that operate well with wheel cards, like whenever everybody discards their hand or draws 7, something happens, or things that double tokens or double counters or move stuff around on the battlefield. What does a snowman enter? What does a snowman order at a Mexican restaurant? Burrito. Of course, get some burritos. And then Finale of Devastation, a card that I'm really sad. I don't think I got this at the pre-release for War of the Spark. This would have been a great promo to get. It seems playable and it's good, and it's at $20. Lion's Eye Diamond Encrusted Rudy does LED +1 to any target. Finale of Devastation, of course, you get to search your library and graveyard for a creature card with mana value X, and if X is 10 or more, you get to give everything +10/+10 and trample and haste. And while this is decent card, it was a promo, so this is an example of why going to pre-release is good. You can get some promos. Always hold on to those promos for quite some time. Sometimes they can be quite good. And then coming up last on our movers and the shakers list, we got Zilortha. Mumbling and fumbling through here. This is the Zilortha Strength Incarnate Legendary Creature. While it is just a reprint of the Godzilla King, right? Dinosaur. This guy is definitely selling guns. This dinosaur here, he's a small arms dealer. I can tell. He doesn't have very big pipes, right? Wanting to buy some Core 2021 now. Maybe I'll get a draft and collector. How's this price doing for price? Holy smokes. It's drifted down in price quite a ways, and now it's back up. Interesting. I like it. Well, folks, I want to thank you all for joining in. This has been the Morning Magic the Gathering Talks and Stocks with your host, Brody Alfonso. For those of you tuning in, take care of one another out there in the wild world. Come for the Magic the Gathering cards. Stay for the spicy discussion and the laughs that we have here on the morning show. Leave me a comment. An estate is a medium, rarely well done. If you can have a little fun with me on the morning show, you get a couple of chuckles, and I appreciate your viewership. Wherever you may be, take care of one another, and if you can't make it to Magic, bring a friend to Brody. They'll be here on the morning show tracking the prices of Magic cards. Is there enough information out there, or is there just too much information? Appreciate you all. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you again on the next one. Let's go to my friend Ron Burgundy for a little bit of jazz flute to start your morning. Moving and grooving. Shot dice. I didn't even finish my coffee. There's more coffee. A little more coffee.